Welcome to What Would Sabrina Say? I'm Sabrina Dong, and I'm excited you're joining me today. In this podcast, I dive into mental health topics on relationships and overall well-being. With over 20 years of experience as a licensed clinical social worker, I share insights and invite expert guests who are passionate about making a positive difference. I started this podcast because I was frustrated with the often misleading or recycled information in social media involving self-help and the mental health field. My goal is to provide you with genuine, useful content that's educational and informative. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you find our conversations both enlightening and empowering. I'm glad you're here. Zac, it's really great to have you on. Thanks so much for being a guest and being here today to talk about traditional Chinese medicine. It's been a while, so I'm glad we're able to connect. So thank you again for being here. Just wondering if you could share with the audience a bit about yourself, with the listeners. You have well over close to a decade of expertise and experience, and today, unfortunately, we'll only be able to cover about acupuncture and Qigong. But of course, you're more than welcome to join us another time.
Thanks, Sabrina. Yeah, it definitely has been way overdue. So, as a short bow of myself, I'm a shaman and a folk priest. I'm a registered acupuncturist. I'm a master medical Qigong. I'm a Reiki master teacher. And I work out of 607 Gerard Street East in East Chinatown, Unit 402, 401. And we have a store that's apothecary and curio for spiritual items. But we're here talking about the acupuncture side of things. So let's get started on that then.
Great. So can you tell me a bit about the benefits of acupuncture and just what it entails?
The benefits of acupuncture are, there's lists of them, right? So the easiest one is physical vitality, physical problems, neck, shoulder problems, lower back pain. And then there's emotional side of things like anxiety, depression, digestive, fertility. If you name it, we can most likely work with it since it is a medical system.
Great. So again, you see how the mind and body is so interconnected. So if you're supporting and offering assistance in one area, you may see benefits in others. So what does a first initial appointment look like for people who may be interested?
That's an elaborate answer. I'll walk you through the general walkthrough. Typically, when someone comes for a Chinese medicine practitioner or a registered acupuncturist, we're trying to get to know you as a whole. We're trying to see where everything links up as a holistic medicine. So we're going to go through a process of asking you 10 questions, things that you don't even think that might be related, such as your bowel movement and urination. People are like, why do you need to know that? Well, it gives us a metaphor that we can work through saying, okay, this is what's happening with your digestive tract, what's happening with your colon, things like this. Then once we get those 10 questions answered and we more or less get to know you as a whole from those 10 questions, then we're going to take a look at your tongue and we're going to go and take a look at your pulse and just feel what's there. From there, we'll compile something called a TCM illness, which is a medical diagnosis. And then we'll go through the process of explaining what is acupuncture or what modalities we would be using to benefit the client.
Right. It's also your professional recommendations based on the symptoms as well, too.
Absolutely. Like we're collecting as much information as we can just because it is such a complex situation because people are like, well, I'm stressed. Well, that stress could be leading you to having, say, neck problems or shoulder problems or things that seem completely unrelated, such as, oh, well, I went drinking last night. Well, that could actually have something to do with your digestion later on, not just from a few days from when you had it. So we're trying to get into looking at your lifestyle as a whole.
Right. So you're gathering a lot of more information than just talking about the symptoms or the specific organ that might be the problem. You're assessing the entire body and function of the different systems.
Absolutely. And it's really like how the different systems work together because you yourself, the client in this context, is unique. So you're going to come in with different issues that are unique to you. So I could take two people with shoulder and neck pain, and yet they have completely different lifestyles. So I don't know how to treat that unless I get a very vast and interconnected look at you.
Great. That's great to know. And especially, again, with connection around the digestive system and involving mental health, we hear more about the gut and digestive tract, the intestines being like the second brain, right? There's so much you can know just based on understanding, like you said, although the questions may be uncomfortable around bowel function, etc., you're understanding how, again, what challenges be happening involving those systems and how to help there. So there's so much information.
Absolutely.
So what would you say are some of the mental health benefits that clients may experience from traditional Chinese medicine?
Well, primarily when I work with clients, some of them they come in for different issues like anxiety, depression, stress. These are the main ones we generally see in clinical situations. Everyone is unique. So we can generally mitigate things and talk about the metaphors of what it means to have something like a liver cheese stagnation. That's when your nervous system is too pent up. So then you tense up, for example. That's a little bit different than you being you overthinking. We would put to your digestive tract because that's literally where you break down your thoughts. So in Chinese medicine, we don't make a difference between the physiological function and the mental functions. We actually see them as the same, just elaborated within each other.
As a whole, wow, that's great to know. It's very interesting. And you're right. It's understanding, like you said, difference between symptoms or treatment around general stress or anxiety and where there may be symptoms because of underlying issues that are causing fatigue or low mood, etc.
Right. And the thing with emotions, like we have 7 different emotions in Chinese medicine that we can break down, at least on baseline. Obviously, there are more complex nuances that we can go, but things such as anger, sadness, or depression, over mania or anxiety, right? There's so many we can go through, and each of them has a different organ network that can be associated, but then there's a dance between the networks. So, for example, I'm sure there's times your listeners have had where they are stressed. It's been a really tough day, and they're like, oh, I don't know what to do. And the first thing they go to is eating because it's comfortable. So now they're stress eating. Well, that is a neurological and physiological thing we can work with acupuncture to control that stress and start rewiring you for a new habit. And that does take some time. That does take some awareness from the clients to have that discussion. But at least we can help you physiologically to stop that. And then they can do the mental, emotional awareness exercises afterward.
And what would some of those look like? Is that where you'd recommend Qigong or other mindful
Absolutely.
type of practices?
Like mindfulness is one of the top things I always would recommend. A lot of people would say, oh, well, acupuncture, just go in and get them fixed like a mechanic. And that's not the way it was in Chinese culture, historically speaking. It was more when you went to a practitioner, we acted as a guidance counselor in many ways. We were guiding them to their health. We're guiding them through life. So anything in the imbalances, as we would say, could be balanced over time through proper health, nutrition, and awareness exercises. So things such as Qigong, which is low aerobic exercises with, I'm going to call it visualizations, but it's really 5 sensory inputs of improving your senses. And then on top of that, with breath technique, you can do quite a bit with that to reprogram your subconscious mind.
Right. So it's focusing on subconscious mind, helping to regulate the nervous system. You're focusing on regulating digestive tract.
Yep. Yep. All of that.
Again, looking at the person as a whole. Wow, that's really interesting. What would you like our listeners to know about Qigong? Again, I'm not very familiar reading a lot around sensory motor, psychotherapy, movement in the body that's helping for different symptoms related, let's say, to trauma. But what would be helpful to know about Qigong?
I think the most helpful thing about Qigong is it's not as hard as people think it is. I think it could be as simple as just watching your breath. And then we start adding things like movement. And then we can start adding things like Chinese metaphors to it. The Qigong worldview is a very different worldview than, say, yoga. They use a whole different cultural mapping. So does it get you the same result? And that's the second thing I would say is if you're doing Qigong, it should get you results. I'm very pragmatic on that point. And when you're doing these awareness exercises, it's about the accountability and reflections. My Qigong classes, or I should say our Qigong classes, because my business partner, Andrea Vitamis, is also teaching Qigong classes. We really want our students to reflect and be mindful of what's happening. So if you do a movement, what does that mean? How does that feel when you move your arm and actually slowing down? When you can slow down, you can be more aware, you can be more focused, you can build your concentration, and then you start getting revelations about yourself.
That's great. So really bringing in about, like you said, slowing down, having that awareness of what's happening creating movement with intention. So Qigong, again, is just another method or tool of just really getting to know yourself and your body. And I think that's great, especially as a time such as right now, going through the pandemic. We're very, I think, disconnected, being on a lot of devices, on screens. So what a great practice to be able to be more present and more aware of what's happening, not just in your mind, but in your body as well.
Well, right. And one of the first things we did during the pandemic, I could say I was being perfectly selfish on this. And Dre and I we rolled an online meditation as soon as possible for people that we run every weekday. So we're in the process of switching platforms currently. However, we've been running that on Zoom, and that's been running since the pandemic started because we knew that we needed it. So at that point, even focusing on basic techniques such as breath work, 10 minutes can make a world of difference because that at least gives you time to process what's happening. Because when you're in a fight or flight reaction, we have to get you into a calm relaxation state instead.
Right. So people are able to still see the benefits, still practice with you Qigong remotely. Is that something you're still able to offer?
Yep, absolutely. So with the Qigong classes, we are doing a hybrid model. So with things in Toronto, if you're local in Toronto, as long as we have verification of a double vaccination and you're wearing a mask, you can come to the space, of course, up to limit. And then we will also have hybrid model in terms of we are doing this through Zoom for people that are interested.
Oh, that's great. That's good to know. And congratulations on the apothecary. I'm wondering if you can share about that business venture and some of the product items you'll be selling there. And it sounds like you'll also be teaching some of the courses there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So with the apothecary, it's Queen City Curio and Apothecary. The website is queencitycurio.ca. So with that, we have a selection of like really premium herbs there. It is like I would open up the jar. I'm like, this is so fresh. And I'm really picky when it comes to herbs, just because being brought up in a restaurant family, what's good and what's not good. So I'm very happy about our premium quality. We have, again, we're at 130 currently. We will be increasing that more and more. Our next shipment's probably going to be 150. Our goal is to get up to about 500 to 600 herbs. This is culinary herbs, but those herbs are also used for spiritual development. So if people are like, well, how could we use these herbs? We do teach people how to use the herbs on more of a spiritual level to connect and actually get in touch with the body and get different sensations. So there's that side of things. If people are looking for more spiritual development, that's what the Queen City Curio and Apothecary is really built around, is about education and helping people develop in a non-dogmatic way spiritual skill sets to better their lives, because that's where our focus is.
Right. And there's so many benefits to using herbs just for immune function and that are immune boosting. And like you shared within your lineage and culture, and there's so many ways that it can help to reduce inflammation in the body. So like you said, you can get in there and benefit from both ways of attending your apothecary, not just to learn about what tinctures or teas might be helpful for immune function, but also, like you said, if people are more into the spiritual hearts or wanting to improve their life that way, there you can assist there as well. So that's great.
Absolutely. It's a all-in-one shop with our wellness center. So if people need acupuncture, we're kicking up our community acupuncture again. We are looking at safety first and foremost for everyone. So that's a double vaccination and no mask being worn, but that's a group-centered acupuncture practice. So that means it's less cost on the individuals, because that's a thing during COVID. We totally understand that, but we also need the safety. So with step 3 regulations, we are going to be opening up and looking at that at August 17th onward. And that's actually expanded hours. We'll be having that open about 5 days a week for people depending on their schedules, where you can just come on in, you do the form online, and then you'll just get your needle session. So we have that at limited spaces. And if people want teas, incense, if they're looking to stones, things like that, we have that supporting network with the Queen City Curio and Apothecary.
Wow, that's great. So again, just a whole variety of ways that you can help to improve wellness. Tell me more about upcoming events that you have or any events that you'd like to share or projects.
Sure. So the major one is really, we have the community acupuncture coming in. We are expanding our Qigong classes to be 4 days a week. Once the August 17th mark rolls in, that is mostly going to be in mornings and afternoon evenings. So we have that coming up. We'll be eventually going into Tai Chi training also right after the Qigong. So we have that as a double up possibly for people that are looking for more community events. We are part of the Toronto Pagan Pride. So we will be helping people with that side of things also. So we are really working toward being part of the community and supporting people's wellness through spiritual practices, through your health, through your mental, emotional side of things. It's an all-in-one package at our store and
And
shop.
through traditional Chinese medicine. Just again, listeners or audience may be wondering, same as me, the difference between Tai Chi and Qigong.
So Tai Chi is first and foremost a martial art. And then Qigong is a general umbrella term. So Qigong can be martial, spiritual, or longevity medical. So when we're doing Tai Chi, it is a low aerobic movement with breathing, but its structures are much more stringent because it was used as a martial art first. When we're doing Qigong, it's about more inquiry into the body, awareness, and reflection.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for clarifying that. As well, too, just wondering about acupuncture. How often would someone need to follow up and schedule appointments? Does it vary again, just depending on what people are seeing you for or coming in for?
I would say, yeah, it definitely is dependent on what they're coming in for. However, I would recommend once a week just for either maintenance and or pushing forward on those different issues. Because it's one thing to say, all right, we have a set amount of treatment plan and that's what we're going to work through, right?
Right.
We have that side of things. However, I'm always about proactive care. So people that come on in, I would generally encourage people to go through a treatment plan on a private session. So you get a full shebang with that. So we're doing acupuncture, we're doing diet therapy, we're doing Qigong therapy with that. We're also covering like low velocity adjustments and we're covering massage. It's like Chinese medical massage. So it's an all-in-one package. You're getting your intensive care there. And then afterward, I would say, hey, you go through that process. If you really like that premium side of things, you can continue on. However, if people are just looking for maintenance afterward, I would encourage them coming once a week for community after a process of treatment.
Okay. Yeah. So, like anything else, maintenance is important and it's only as helpful as you keep it up, right? Just like for clinicians, when we give strategies around cognitive behavior therapy, et cetera, if, like you said, around accountability and motivation, really needing to practice or to commit to a few regular appointments to see those results.
Yeah. And it's like, we don't want to just obviously focusing on just the treatment itself. Again, my general goal, I'm a little greedy on this. I like to go for life aspirations. So I talk to my clients all the time and people are coming in, they're like, oh, we want to do sports better. I'm like, yeah, let's work on that. However, that's more proactive now and that's more aspirational than saying I got a bum knee, right?
So also more preventative measures as well, too?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's like I usually say to people, hey, let me work with you. What do you want to go through in life? Like if you're like, I want to get better at sports. I want to maybe study harder for students. People come in for dietitian weight loss side of things. Like it's a whole gambit. And it's really, we're looking at a holistic system of not just fixing the problem, but really preventing the problem and then even pushing you toward where you need to be or want to be.
Okay, great. That's really important to know that it can also be helpful for preventative or, like you said, thinking of longer term goals than just helping to alleviate some symptoms.
Yep.
So if someone were to come in, let's say, and you notice perhaps, again, an organ's being effective in causing symptoms around anxiety or depression, like you mentioned in traditional Chinese medicine, there's definitions and terms around emotions as well. Would you recommend any of your tinctures, herbs, remedies, or
So as an acupuncturist, I'm first and foremost going to be saying, how can we work with your diet? Like
Okay.
herbs, it's not something like if you went to a traditional Chinese medicine practitioner, they could do prescriptive herbs. Myself, as a registered acupuncturist, at the moment, I'm working toward my TCMP. I just have to write that board exam. This is where it's like, how do we make this simple for you? So if people are saying, oh, we're eating out, I'm going to be saying, what do you eat out? Are you going for bar food? Are you eating fancy Italian restaurants? What is it? Because I want to work in your lifestyle. I don't want too much work. However, diet is a big thing. You eat 3 times a day and then you have liquids with that. So that's definitely going to have an incremental effect long term. Even things like massage techniques of how to teach people how to massage for anxiety is a big thing too, because that is going to help them snap back into their body. Usually when you have anxiety, even stress, we know through physical touch, that is a thing. So even if you have to do the activation pieces on yourself, we can do that. And then if people are really busy, like I work with a lot of entrepreneurs, I work with a lot of high level executives. I understand they don't have time. I totally understand that as a business owner and business partner. So this is where I'd say, okay, what's the best we can do? Maybe we can't control your diet. Maybe you can't control what you drink. Ideally, I love to, and I really get into those pieces when people come to me that have the time for that. But if you don't, well, how do we do a quick solution? Maybe we do something like ear seeds and you just have to massage the ear for 5 minutes a day just to snap you out of it. Or maybe we work with your neurology in a way that helps break certain habits just to remind you, right? So the difference between acupuncture and acupressure is they both use the same points exactly. The difference is one has a metal needle, which is a controlled act from a practitioner. The other one is where you as a client will learn how to actually do self-maintenance. So the biggest things in Chinese medicine, it's like by the time people come to herbs and by the time they come to acupuncture, you're at the worst case scenarios. We really don't want that particular piece. I'd rather teach you how to basically do preventive techniques. So I'm very big on people learning how to do massage. I'm very big on people wanting to do like ear pressure on the ear to essentially reset the system there and get them out of that particular state of mind, whatever it is for them. And the diet would be the next thing. So we try to do as many tools that empower our clients to have a better life.
Great. So it's interesting. So I'm thinking of listeners who may have phobia or fear of needles and maybe unsure about how to access acupuncture. And I guess there are also pressure techniques or pressure points that you could recommend.
Absolutely. So if someone's really having a phobia of needles, I've worked with those people, right? So it just depends on what we're trying to work with. If someone says, hey, I'm really scared of needles, the first thing is we use premium needles. I use the most delicate needling technique I can. I'm not really one of those people like, you have to feel the needle. I'm one of those like, okay, there's a needle. And people are like, there's a needle in me? I'm like, yes, there's definitely a needle in you. And that's all right. I didn't want you to feel it. I want you to feel the results from that culture, not the needle itself. So that's all different school of thought than what most acupuncture does. Everyone, like, there's so many different schools of thought in acupuncture. One of them is I want the client to feel the needle. I'm not one of them.
You may feel it more than other places, right?
This gets into an interesting conversation of, I would say, training. Everyone has different styles. The way I was trained was clients should feel the results. It's just a pinch, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm one of those, again, this comes from my energy training. This comes from the meditation and being present with people and holding the space. Like, I don't want you to feel anything other than the results. So if people come in for neck and shoulder stuff, that's an easy one where they're like, oh yeah, do you have more mobility? Absolutely. So it's like, even for those chronic issues, I really don't want people feeling much other than results.
Right.
The school of thought that says they need to feel the needle. That's a very northern school of thought in acupuncture. And that's not the way I practice.
Okay. So yeah, that's interesting to know there's different ways to practice acu. What about for people who are concerned about bruising? I know that can be part of the process or
That is part of the
healing.
process. It doesn't happen often, but it can.
Okay. And in some areas or some practices, it's the bloodletting, et cetera, is part of healing process as well too,
Absolutely.
and part of traditional medicine.
Yes.
So it's not to be something to be concerned about if you do see bruising in some areas. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the bruising happens. It's rarely the way, like, I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. It does happen occasionally, but that's where I usually say just massage it out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Usually, if you're doing bloodletting, that's a whole different game, right? We don't do that at our studio in particular. However, I will verify that bloodletting is very effective if you find the right people
Right.
for do it.
Okay. So that's helpful to know in terms of what people should expect or not to expect. Was there anything else you'd like to share about upcoming events, apothecary? It's helpful to know any practices.
Yeah. Again, I would just say we are expanding our Qigong classes. That's going to be 4 days a week starting mid-August.
That's
We are
amazing.
also going to be doing a hybrid model with the Qigong classes. We have the acupuncture, community acupuncture opening up. We have our daily meditations for weekdays. So we have a lot going on. And even for our membership, for people interested in the spiritual side, if people become a member, we have a bi-monthly podcast called Deeper Down the Rabbit Hole. And for our sponsors, if they're in Toronto, we say, okay, we're going to be doing a live audience very soon for participants that are interested. If you're a member, you get to look into our library. and those available for our membership.
So deeper down the rabbit hole, that's a podcast that's more esoteric in nature.
Yes,
Right.
that is a esoteric, practical, results-driven spirituality podcast.
Okay, great. And I'm looking forward to posting all the information about the links you shared, your upcoming events on my podcast page. So happy to update it along the way as well. And again, you're always welcome to come back. There's so many topics I think we could cover or go into more detail, but I hope it's helpful for the listeners and in the future to come and be interested in anyone who'd like to share a DM about any benefits or positive experiences they've received through acupressure, acupuncture, Qigong. It's great to share that. And especially, like you said, you're creating a community, you're creating a hub. So it's great for people to know and also give their feedback as well.
Absolutely. Last thing I will say is just with any of the listeners there, if you have any questions around acupuncture and you don't really know which way to go, it will be on the contact page, as Sabrina said. However, do feel free to give us an email. I do read the emails. I do email back to people. So if you have any questions, I'm always there.
That's great that you mentioned that, Zac, because for myself too, I've, experienced such benefits from acupuncture for balancing my system, digestive, hormonal. And it was really hard and intimidating not knowing where to look and where to go, how to have an understanding of, again, what techniques, what's beneficial, trainings. So I really appreciate you offering up to be available and make yourself available to listeners if they have any questions. So thank you so much for your time today. Appreciate it. And again, looking forward to having you back.
Looking forward also, Sabrina.
Thanks. Bye for now.